Welcome to Programming with Qt Widgets. In this episode, I will get my hands dirty implementing a table model entirely from scratch. So why is it useful for you to see me implement it from scratch? Well, mostly for the entertaining value of me doing things wrong and seeing how much ChatGPT is actually doing when I'm coding. No, it is to slow down the pace a bit so you get a chance to follow along, because one thing is to explain you need to implement this and that, but the other thing is to actually follow along when I do it. On my screen now, you can see the end result. We might not add all the columns here, but it's a very simple table model that shows the releases of the DepecheModel albums. I'm a huge DepecheModel fan. Hello, Martin, watching this? I guess not. Anyway, you can see in the headers here are the years of the releases or the release, the titles of the albums. There we are. And different pieces of information along. This is the year of the release, who released it, is it on CD, cassette tapes? You gotta love that the 23 release is on cassette tapes, huh? And so on, and the top chart position in different countries. This is just because I needed something to model, so I found this information on a wiki page, and I converted it into something that is not entirely unlike what you might find out there in the wild. I have a class here that is called storage that I can access this information from. And given this is a table, I need to know the amount of albums. I need to get information about each of the albums, and that's the album information I have up there. I have this nice little trick here with flags, which you can see over here, where I can say CD or cassette or LP. There is an episode using exactly this one here on Qt Widgets and more that you might want to watch after you watch this one. Just for the entertaining value, the episode is called No More Booleans, and I argue why you should strive at not having Booleans in your APIs and to write code like this rather than just false, 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 or true, true, true for the setup here. But that's the setup of this. You have the code available, so you might download it and play along, and at least you can reference it. And hey, that's the cool thing about me. You can pause me whenever you want and actually go and look into the handout to see things that you might want to. When I'm done, there will also be a solution that you can look at. I will copy the end result over to the solution so you can see exactly the code I ended up with. So how do I get started? Well, I need a model, a subclass of QAbstractTableModel, and I need a view, which would be a QTableView. So let's go to main and create my view here. So QTableView. And you will see me misspelling a lot. My view is already included up here. Obviously, I didn't clean up the code well enough. The QTableView is allocated on the stack. Obviously, I wouldn't do that usually, but just for this example here, I do it. And ChatGPT suggests, or GitHub Copilot suggests that I do these things, so let's just do that. What I also need is a model, and I will be implementing this model here. Depeche. Oh, come on. I'm not standing aligned for my keyboard here. DepecheModel. I love that name. DepecheModel. So I'll implement a DepecheModel, and view is being my view needs this model. And of course, I need to include my DepecheModel, which it doesn't know how to do yet because I haven't implemented it. So let's just do that. DepecheModel.h. Okay, there we are. Now my main is ready and I need to go and say, okay, new. And sometimes it's useful to have a look at what is offered here. I could just go new entirely C++, QTableView, that's for my own work. But here is Qt item model. That seems like a good starting point. So let's go with that. The name is DepecheModel. And I have a number of options here. Customize header row. Yes, please. Items are editable. No. Rows and columns can be added. No. Rows and columns can be removed. No. Fetch data dynamically. And no to that too. This is a simple model, but if I had the need for any of these, I would check them off and I would get additional methods available in my implementation. Should it go into my Git? Whatever. It's called that. Add to this lab up here. And I have a lot of stuff here already. Let's see what the API looks like. So the header here, and all of this is Qt Creator giving me this default here. But so let's better review whether it looks good. So my Depeche model here is a subclass of QAbstractTableModel. See, should we make it a QAbstractTableModel instead? There we are. Because I don't want the full QAbstractTableModel. I don't want the full QAbstractTableModel API because that's a lot of stuff. Header data here. Yes, that's the method that we saw in the previous episode for getting me header information. Basic functionality, index and parent. We will definitely learn about those when we talk about the full-blown tree models, but for this use case here, I don't need it. Row count, column count, and data, and enjoy how the parameters are properly defaulted as they are in the superclass. And well, QAbstractTableModel interface. Thank you very much. Okay, one thing I need more. I need my data. So we had this storage m_storage. And I'll return for including that. And in case you're asking yourself now, gee, he knows a lot of keyboard shortcuts. And what is this GitHub Copilot? Well, Qt Widgets and more have an episode on GitHub Copilot. And it has an episode on my favorite shortcuts in Qt Creator. So watch these after this episode. Let's look at what does the implementation look like. Well, first of all, there is a constructor that doesn't do much. So sorry, it's I just can't help using QAbstractTableModel. Gone with the constructor. The few lines that is done now. The header data, I definitely need to implement that. My index method, we decided not to do that. And parent, we decided not to do. Row count. And see here, it actually tests for whether the parent is invalid as it should. In the previous episode, I told you that you can skip that because the view will never get it wrong. And that is true for the QListView, QTableView, QTreeView, but a proxy model setting above might get it wrong. Actually, after this episode here, there will be another episode, surprise, and it's an episode where I'll tell you about all the tests that you should be making. So stay tuned for that one. Okay, row count, column count, and here comes the data, and it all looks good. Let's compile it just to see whether it actually is capable of building. It was. So complaining about a lot of places where it should return stuff. So maybe let's just, I would really love soon to be able to run something just to see that something works here. So let me just return a bunch of things here. Empty values. So now I can run it and ta-da, I'm almost there now. What do you mean that this is not enough? You want some headers? Okay, let's implement header data. That is the nice and easy one. And the header data goes like this. If the row is different from display row, return nothing. Remember in the previous episode, Robert was shouting USA to me all the time, and he did so because to help me remember always to test for my row. Good. If the orientation, and let's see if we have it still here, I will have the albums in the rows and all this information in the columns. So let's start with the rows. That's the easier one to some degree at least. If orientation is equal to Qt : vertical, and it's not because I can't spell that I get all these errors. I'm standing really awkward in front of my camera here for this one. There we are. If it's vertical, then we'll do this. Otherwise, we'll do that. And, well, that's a return. Okay. Now I need to go and ask my underlying model information for the row titles. So I'll go and say, okay, dear model, auto item m_data. Data. I should just let ChatGPT type for me. So it's not called data, it's called storage. And it is called album. So give me the information about the album on this particular row here. And that's this information. And then all I need to do is to return the, let's call that album over here. And what does an album look like? Album is called not title, but album. It should have been called title. There we are. Now I actually, let's see if I do, have something in my rows. Not much to look at still. Why is that? Oh yeah, I didn't tell how many rows I have. So let's implement that right away. That is actually super easy to implement because I'll just say return return m_storage. And how many albums do I have? Well, the storage has a method called album_count. Sometimes you are that lucky, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you need to calculate it yourself, and still nothing is shown, which is slightly peculiar. Of course, now I had actually expected that I would see some information here. Let's just imagine that we had one column here and returning nothing. I wonder if it's because of the lack of columns that I don't see anything. Now I see one column, but still not the data. This is a good time for an ad while I ponder a bit upon this. Let me give you a free advice. If you have a friend that brews beer, run. Brewing beer is hard. Unless that you are using Braumeister, which is a tool, like a physical tool, like a brewing machine with an embedded board on top of it that QTab helped develop. It's an interesting story. Follow the link here for a showcase. I hope you spent the time in the ad to think about the solution to this, because, of course, as soon as I said let's have an ad, I saw the problem right away. I can't remember if the code, what it looked like when it got generated for me, but the code is, the problematic code is right here. It says, if the parent is valid not, and remember the is valid thing, it means is it an element in my table. So a valid index is one that points actually into my table. And this one says if the parent of the row count here is not pointing into the table. And that was, where was it? Remember from one of the previous episode, this one here. So if I have this one, that is parent is valid not, then of course I'm asking for how many rows do you have at the top of your table. And that should say this, let's just undo it here and move them around. That should say this one, and then here it is. So if I am asking for, I have an index. If this index is not pointing into the table anywhere, then you should tell me how many rows you have at the top level. And that's what I do here. Otherwise, return 0. And you can see when I inserted the 1, my brain was clever enough to say, yeah, that's it, because down here, implement me. Well, that's easy. There, if I am asking for how many columns do you have underneath this one, not this one, but this one, that's the row 5, column 7. How many columns do you have underneath that? Oh, wait a minute, it's a table, so obviously I do not have any columns underneath that. That only applies for trees. So in that situation, it should say nothing. And we can do it like no. Okay, let's see. Drums. And here are my albums and the one column that I created. Okay, so far. Now, for the next part, the columns. Let's go over and look at our storage. So I have a number of different columns here. So if we are talking about column 0, then it's not this one because that was in the header data. Column 0 is year. So we go over here and say, if my section is equal to 0, then return year. If section is equal to 1, return record label. QString, let's roll. You are a very nice, that ChatGPT can do all my job here, huh? And so on. And let's just stop it here. Because what ChatGPT have not been thinking about is the maintenance of this software. Because the problem is that going forward, I might want to add something between here, and then I need to go and say, yeah, it should be 2 and it should be 3, and I need to do that in a number of different other places and so on. So what I really would like instead is an enum. Let's go over here. Actually, let's go to my storage and steal a lot here. That's all the things we need. And I would like to have an enum in here. Enum, column, and these are the values. Year, string, and here starts the magic. Ooh, did you see that? Cool. And go there and delete that. And we do the same thing up here. If we can. There we go. Let's go. So these are now my columns. If I remove the last one, it will put them next to each other. That's a Qt Creator feature. Well, it's not. It's a Clang format, and whoa, that's also an episode on Clang formatting, Qt Widgets and more. So now I have all my columns, and I can go back over here to my storage here, and I can switch on my columns. So I'll say switch on my my section. Wow, that was fast typed, wasn't it? Okay, so ChatGPT wrote it all for me, so that's cool. I need one more thing though. I need to have the number of columns returned at some point. So as a very useful trick in that setup is to have a column count here at the end. If I have a column count, my implementation, well, I need to say case column count here. Column count. And now my implementation for row count is super easy. No, for column count is super easy. Just return the amount of columns. And now I run it, and we'll see, hopefully, real soon. Lots of errors. Must have deleted a closing brace there. Here are each of my columns and each of my rows. And well, let's hope that it got them all right. But let me just break here just to touch up the code. Okay, that was just a little bit of touch up. It said medium because I had this flag for the medium, whether it's a CD, an LP, cassette tape, and so on. But in my view here, I actually wanted to show as separate columns with checkboxes in. So ChatGPT obviously didn't know about that. So that's the change that I did that over here in my, it said medium, and now I have these. And I also changed year and record label to be capital letter because I like that better. Okay, so far so good. We have the headers there working. So now we need to go and look at the implementation for the data method. The data method, we have this working. So the data method is the last thing. Let's just check that it's not cheating on me again. If you ask for data for an index that is not valid, index not valid, this one here, yes. In that case, do not return anything. You're asking, can you tell me what text should be for the year for this one? Well, this is the one sitting above. So here, this test is good enough. So we'll go and say, otherwise, I need my, and ChatGPT obviously wants to help along here. So I need the album. So I go to my storage, I ask for the album for the index here. Cool. Now I have information about the actual album in this, and we can make that a const. We can make that const just to add some value above that. And now I want to do a switch. Switch. And you might think, just like ChatGPT, that I want to switch. I can't even spell switch. Switch, that I want to switch over each of the columns so that I can return something different for the CD than for the UK top position. That's not what I want to do. I want to switch over the role because I want to do something depending on the role. And the first role that we're interested in here is the display role. Display role. Thank you. And that's because that I want to, do I still have the original running? Is that the original? Yes, it is. See, later on I want to set up the alignment. This is center, this is aligned to the left. I also want to set up some check roles for these checkboxes and some more alignment stuff here. So I will be doing stuff for different roles. And in here now, I'll do a switch on index dot column, and let me just go over here and steal because this is really boring. I'll show you something cool here. So now I Control D. That's a new feature in Qt Creator of recent, and I can now do stuff here for all of them. Album dot whatever. Peak chart position is let me just steal that over here. The peak chart position for some of those that do not have any peak chart position will say -1, and that just looks weird. So now we do like this. And column, what do we call it? Column underscore count. Okay, let's run this now. See if it's almost there. I definitely need some. There's a lot of stuff down here. One too many, I guess. This down here. Return. So this is the case where it is not the display role or some of the other roles that I'll eventually handle. It will just return some information there. And see, it's already starting to fill out pretty well here with all the information. So this is the release year. This is the record. This part here is missing from my cut and paste. And what is that about? Well, that is about the check marks for the whether a given album is released on CD or cassette tapes and so on. Let's handle that now. For this, we need to look at another role than just a display role. And the easiest way is simply to press F2 on the display row, go over and look at all the roles and enjoy this. Down here it goes from 11, 12, 13, 14 to 27, and then the internal UI lib roles. Okay, cool enough. Start worrying when public roles go that high. So that's another 13 roles here before we need to really worry about the numbering of the roles. Not that the numbers means anything. What we'll find here is a check state role. That's the whether it's checked or not. So we'll go down here and case Qt : check state role. State role, there we go. And again, do I have too many now? There we go. And now again, I need to look on the roles. So switch index.column out to the roles, the columns. And this time I'm interested in, say, on CD column. I cannot spell column for the love of my creator. CD column. If it's a CD, then return true. It's just to see something actually working, because that's always a good thing. So I got this weird looking CD or checkbox. Is it checked or is it not checked? And it's actually, it's in between. It's the tri-state checked, because what I really should be returning here is Qt : checked or Qt : unchecked, depending on that. Now we have a checked box that is checked, and just for sanity, let's just validate that it also works for unchecked. And it didn't, because it is not a capital C in unchecked. And there we are, a checkbox that is not checked. So I need to go and say, if it's a column, if it's a CD column, then I'll go to my album, and it was in this mediums, and I have this ampersand. Now I need to go over and look in my storage.h. Medium CD. All of this is a bitwise AND, so I just pull that out. I convert that to a Boolean. I don't need to do that. If that's the case, then it should be checked. Otherwise, it should be unchecked. And let's see if that works. This is a general way of development for me, that I check things all the time when I develop. Obviously, CD was a bad example because they are all on CD, but how about cassette tape? That one, they weren't all on, so cassette tape. And we can see some of them are not on cassette tape, but then again, they started releasing cassette tape. So if you appreciate this this series here, ping me, and I'll get you my address so you can send me, as a token of appreciation, this cassette tape. I don't have a cassette tape player anymore, but hey, I would love to have the latest album on a cassette. Jokes aside, I obviously need to fill in for LP, DCC, MD, and download. So I'll do that real fast, and we'll speed up while I do it here. And back to normal speed, and you can see now I actually got all of these filled out properly. The only thing we miss now is to get the alignment correct. So it's a centered align here, and these are also centered, and well, these should also be centered. So really everything should be centered except the record label, which we want to have left aligned. So for this, we need another role. This time it's a text alignment role. Text alignment role. And well, as ChatGPT suggests to me already, It's something along the lines of Qt align center. What we need is if the column is equal to the, and what was that called? That was called the record label. Column colon record label. Then, and you ask yourself now, why does he write column colon colon? Record label would be just fine. Well, that's because I'm preparing myself. Again, it is really just muscle memory. I never ever have this one here as a enum that is not within a class, because I like class enums. I'll show you how to get around that in just a few minutes. But if it's a record label, then align left. Otherwise, I like what you said. Come on. I don't even need that. Return. Come on, ChatGPT, help me. There we are. Align left. Otherwise, return align right. And now it hopefully looks right. This is aligned left. This is aligned left. But that is the header label. So that would be in my header data that I would check for this. Aligned left, centered, 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 centered. Why are these not aligned? Well, it says text alignment role. I could move them in, but if I need to do that, then I would need to implement a delegate of my own, which is possible and relatively easy. And I'll talk about delegate a bit later in this series. There is, however, one thing that you might miss when you look at this. So let me just resize this row. Ooh, it's standing up at the top while all the others are standing centered. And that's because that I told it to align left, but I didn't tell about the vertical alignment. So for that, I need to say or Qt align vertical centered. And now when I run it, then I'll get this, can't return from a course now. And this is hopefully you'll be able to Google that relatively fast. It's because now it's a flag, and a flag, it doesn't know how to return the flag. Down here it was an enum that could convert to an integer, but here's a flag. So I'll need to convert this flag here back to an enum, which I can do with the operator int that is built in, but which is what's it called? It's explicit, so it will not do it unless I ask it. And now let's resize it again. And you'll see the record label here is centered again. But it's one of those little things that hopefully seeing me doing it here will make you, at this pace that I'm presenting, give you a time to make a note that you should always be careful when you do alignment. Maybe not on a piece of paper, but at least mentally. And then the final thing is this. I would like to have it enum class column, because I might otherwise have stuff in all my data now was in a separate class, and that separate class was very explicit, making sure that, well, no, I took that back. All my data is in a separate class, but sometimes the data might be in here, and I might have something that is called year for that purpose, and then I would have a collision with that year and the instance variable or the enum, whatever, called year. So enum class, that is what I want. But now, building, I get lots of errors, and that's the last part that I'd like to fix up on this one. Case year. So now section is an integer, and I would like it to be switching on this year here. And for that, I can do static cast and what is called column, and just try and rebuild, and you'll see that now all these errors are gone, hopefully. Switch. Did I rebuild? Of course, here I did not prepare myself, did I? So that solved these parts. And next one here is I need to return column count, but column count is an enum. So now I need to go the other way. I need to go and convert this to an integer. And next error is these things here. I was again not switching over, so I need my static cast again. Static cast column index.column. I would assume that I need that a few more times, so let's just cut and paste that. Compiling again. We're getting closer, and I need my column count to be, there we are, and now I need this one here. We are really getting close now, because now it's testing for whether the index is equal to, and let's just convert that to an integer. And drum rolls, there we are, working again. We are almost done with this episode, but I'd like to introduce you to two utilities that I'm sure have been stolen. Well, one of them has been stolen on the internet, and the other I've created myself. And these two utilities are located, I have them up here already, so they are in this include file called enum help enum converters. And let's just go over there and look what the enum converters does. It's a lot of template code. Don't worry, you don't need to understand really what it goes on. But the first one here is operator plus. That's the unary plus, so it's the one that makes it possible for you to write +7 plus 8. So just like you can write -7, you can also write +7 if you want to make it explicit. So that's a unary plus. And that is on a given type here that comes in with a parameter, and given the way that C++ works, it will figure out the right one if I have this overload here. Okay, and what it does is it casts it to the underlying type, which is an integer in our case. Okay, so I can now write plus in front of my enums, and let's just go over here and do that right away to convert them to a to an integer. So instead of writing parentheses open int parenthesis close, I can do like this. And then you will very likely go like, seriously, that is but ugly. Nobody will ever understand. And trust me, I do that in the code base that I have in my project. And ever so often when somebody comes on the project and new, they'll say, hey, what is that plus going on there? And I'll explain to them, and they'll go like, that's ugly. But 10 minutes later, they'll go, that is nice. Every time I need to go to the integer, I'll just put the plus in front of it. That is so nice. The other one up here is static cast column. So it takes this integer here and converts it to a column. I actually have something that's called enumcast. And it will complain, enumcast, it's called, seriously? In my code base these days, it's called enum_cast, but I stole this. Enumeration value not handled in switch here. So now it will complain about that. So I need a default, because now it's now we are. Why did it not complain about that before? But one of the things that the enumcast does, and it's just validate that it still compiles, is that it will actually go and see no max count is not. I know what it is. See, it'll say static assert or QAssert here. Max count. Type. I was just surprised to see it being a compile error. But what it says here is that if the type, yes, this is one of those beautiful template stuff. If it has the column type, if this type that I'm doing enumcast on, if it has a column type, and has column type is true if it has column count. Otherwise, if a row, then this assert here will not ever hit, because as you can see, hits a compile error because these two const expressions were false, and then I go down here and now it must be true that there is such a type, which there is not. The problem is I do not have a column count. So I'll go to my class here. I called it column_count. I better rename it to columnCount. And when I compile now, I compiled before I finished my editing. Compile output, it did compile again. And what does this help me with now? The enum cast here. Well, the enum cast will make sure that the value that I'm trying to cast is within the right range. How would that possibly go wrong? Well, it could have been that somehow I got a value outside of the range of 0 to the number inside of the column count. It's not a huge test. I don't think that I ever had it hit on me in one case, but instead of writing static cast, I write enum cast, which is slightly more telling me what's going on here in my code. And in addition to that, it have that additional test. The only change is that, can we please call it enum_cast so it looks more like C++. And hopefully it'll compile now. Hopefully it actually did manage to change it over in the other one. And run it. And here's my code again. There's a few more cases up here. Oh, let's just fix them. enum_cast. Did we have more? Let's go. Static cast. Enum. More static cast? No. Was there more integers? There was one here. And that one, again, with a plus. Go on. Why can I not search for it? There we are. And this one is doesn't have anything to do with the other thing. It might actually work here, but let's not change that. That's it for this episode of Introduction to Programming with Qt Widgets. It took quite a while. I have no idea how many minutes it took, but I hope that it was useful for you to actually follow along. And I urge you now to go and find the lab, do it once again. See if you can convert those neurons in your brain into muscles moving in your fingers. And while you do that, I will prepare a new episode for you in the follow-up episode, which is actually from a Qt Widgets and More episode already out there, but I'll just remaster it a bit. I am doing a bit more than what's up here. Of course, if I go and ask for data, and I ask for, it tests whether data is valid. But how about if I ask for something on row -7? Let's see, row -7, index.row. I go into my storage, I ask for something on row -7 here in my album. How does album handle that? Album int. I just do a lookup at int, or lookup in my vector at position -7, which will make QVector or QList if it's Q6, make it crash. It's throw in an assertion, but it'll throw an assertion deep down. So I'd rather have it tell me all the way up here at the data level that, hey, the data that you gave me was not proper. And I have exactly a library for you that does that very, very well. I implemented it myself, so I know, and I've been using that for a couple of years, and I love it. So that's what we'll see in the next episode. Until then, have a great time.